Whenever a particular thought comes in, you kind of question why you're having that. So for instance, maybe it might be, am I going to experience, get blisters on the run or something like that? And so it gives you an opportunity to cover all bases as well. So you would think, well, maybe it's because I'm wearing new shoes, so perhaps I should try my shoes in the days leading up, or perhaps I should try new socks or something like that, so that you can alleviate these thoughts that are starting to creep in. So usually there is reason for the thoughts, but when it comes to the negativity, you've got to recognize that your brain is automatically going to try and alleviate that unsettling feeling of nervousness, because it wants you to be in this nice homeostasis, equilibrium. It doesn't want you to feel this awful, gut-wrenching anxiety that comes with race day. So I think you need to recognize that it's a coping mechanism of your body to bring in these thoughts of, stop, don't race, don't do this, it's not nice. But once you get past that and you're able to deal with that, I think, they can be really powerful.
Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete podcast. We are Jess and BJ, and each week for the past 5 years, this podcast has shined a light on people who are looking, finding, and living their purpose. For some, it takes years of sifting and sorting, while for others, it comes with one decision that shifts the trajectory of their lives. Bottom line, we are all here on purpose. There are no mistakes, and if you're feeling like you're still sifting and sorting, know that every moment is your purpose to find your purpose, and you just never know when it will show up. Our guest today is Ellie Salthouse, undeniably one of the hottest, and I should say fastest triathletes in the profession right now. She is no doubt someone who is on purpose with what she came to this earth to do, and it all began at the age of 11. One morning, while munching on her cereal, Ellie noticed an ad on the cereal box for the Weetabix triathlon. She had her mom sign her up. She completed the race, started training with a coach the following week, turned pro at 17, and now resides under the esteemed guidance of Siri Lindley, our beloved guest from episode 39, which, oh my God, that feels like a million years ago. Initially an ITU pro, Ellie turned to half-distance triathlon in 2016 and finished her first season with 4 titles, multiple podium finishes, and a top 10 at the 70.3 World Championship. Clearly, Ellie, you were on to something at that point. At 28 years old, she is already a veteran in the sport of triathlon, and we're so excited to be in the company of such an amazing athlete whose beautiful personality only makes her light shine brighter. Ellie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. That was very flattering. Thanks.
Well, we've done our research. We've followed you. We're a big fan, and you're beautiful in your performances. You're beautiful on the outside, and your personality just, all of that on the outside is a reflection of who you are inside.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I like to try and inspire those around me and bring some positivity to everything I do.
Yeah.
Do you, with that intro, fabulous intro, of course, do you feel you're doing what your purpose is on this planet? Do you feel aligned with that? Like this is it?
100%. I always knew growing up, starting triathlon so young, I always knew that professional sport was kind of something that I wanted to pursue. Even at such a young age, I dabbled in many different sports. I was always encouraged to try everything and participate in a number of team sports, individual sports, and everything in between. But I always knew I had a love for sport, and if I could make it into my job, then I would love to do that. Obviously, I studied and went to school and finished school and all that, but I knew that sport was what I loved to do. And I guess I'm just lucky enough that I was able to turn my hobby into my job. And it feels like I'm definitely where I'm meant to be. I'm very happy. I'm very healthy, obviously. And yeah, I just love what I do. And I don't feel like I work a day in my life.
Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to say that I know exactly what you're talking about. It's 7:00 on a Monday, and here we are doing an interview, and just all day we're like, this is such an amazing day that we get to do what we love, and we get to talk to people who are also doing what they love. And so I know one of the things you love to do is travel, and you haven't been traveling at all. Your last race that I could trace was in 2019 in Bahrain. And so with 2020 really shifting, of course, how do you feel like it set you up for success? Because, girl, you are on fire. You've had 3 races, 3 wins. You were the fastest swimmer, biker, and runner last, actually a couple weeks ago now at Ironman Geelong. So how do you feel like 2020 set you up to just come out of the gates like, what's that horse? They made a movie about it.
Seabiscuit, was that?
Yeah, or there was another one. I can't remember. But like, that's you. I feel like you were like in the gates, and I don't know what you were doing in the gates, but you are crushing it.
Thank you very much. I guess 2020 gave me an opportunity to have a really nice foundation and a really big off season, essentially. I was able to really knuckle down with Siri, my coach, and we decided that instead of dwelling on what could be or any potential races that may or may not go ahead, that we would just lay some foundations and then we would just work on our weaknesses. So I think that's exactly what we did. I just put in a lot of hard work. And I think the key for 2020 for me was just I was able to put in some consistent work across the 9 to 12 months that we had without racing. So being able to have a really consistent block like that meant that I got to this year ready to race, and I had already done that off-season block that I would typically be doing probably now. So I'm just ready to race, and I'm ready to race a lot earlier than I normally am in the year. So I feel like 2020 was a great opportunity to be able to strengthen my weaknesses and hopefully strengthen my strengths so that everything is on a more level playing field at a better level than it's ever been before.
Does that sort of wane a little bit without having that carrot of the racing ability? Or was, in training, were there sessions that were really trying to raise your engagement level, I guess, your focus?
Yeah, I mean, of course, without racing, there's always going to be a little bit of a struggle with motivation. And Siri and I have always been big believers in knowing our why. So for me, I want to become a world champion. So, I mean, as long as I have that in my head and I know why I'm getting up every single morning to go out and train and give my all, then I really have no problems doing that. But yeah, I think having that big goal has really helped me to stay focused while there was no racing last year. But now that there is racing, no problems with motivation and getting the sessions in and getting them in really well.
And so now you weren't the only one that in 2020 was able to really hunker down and without the physical stress of training. A lot of people are like mending off of, maybe some niggles and things in their body that had been plaguing them and things like that. So who are you keeping your eye on, if anyone, who also has maybe come out of the gates pretty strong? And I think, one we're always keeping our eye on with you is Amelia Watkinson, who's just been on your heels the last couple of races. But is there anybody else that you're watching like, woo, 2020 served them well?
Well, you can never write off any of the big players. They know when to peak, and I think later this year we'll really be able to see who's put in some good work in 2020. But of course, Daniela's already off to a great start. We've got Imogen Simmons off to a great start as well. And of course, Jodie Stimpson, who will be vying for the Olympic Games. So I think she might be one to watch either later this year or next year, once post-Olympics. So yeah, I mean, you can never write anybody off. There's always going to be girls coming through and girls that are faster than you. So it really just elevates you and lifts that benchmark. So you've got to keep your eye on everybody. But for now, Amelia is my biggest rival here, and we've met at the last 4 races, soon to be 5 next weekend. So it's really nice to have something like that because it keeps you motivated, it keeps you working hard, because anytime you waver for just a second, she's right there on my heels. So I just need to be at, a really high level for as long as possible. And yeah, hopefully that's enough.
And so why is she kind of your biggest, is it the Collins Cup? Because you guys are vying for a spot for that. Is that one of the reasons or the main reason?
Yeah, I think so. We're sitting 5th and 6th at the moment on the Collins Cup rankings. So neither of us have an automatic qualifying spot. So we're both vying for the 2 captain's pick spots. So a little bit of that. But then also I think at the moment we're the top 2 females in Australia, and unfortunately no one can travel out here. So we're sitting kind of 1 and 2 in the rankings for all of these national level races. So yeah, I guess there's, you know, for her, she wants to try and beat me and I want to try and stay ahead of her. And yeah, I've got a little bit of a target on my back. So I think that makes the rivalry a little bit stronger as well.
Yeah. And, you know, if you want to be world champion, there's only one world champion at a time.
Exactly. Right? One a year. That's what makes it so special.
It's going to be well earned. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that. So can you explain a little bit? The Collins Cup is kind of unprecedented. It's the first year. Can you kind of explain to people what it's about or why it is that you're trying to vie for a captain's pick?
Yeah, so essentially it's 3 teams. We've got the Americas, the European team, and then the internationals, which is the rest of the world. Each team have 4 automatic qualification spots based on your ranking and your performances from 2020, the end of 2019, and up till August this year. And then each team also has 2 captain's picks. So they're not necessarily the 5th and 6th in the rankings. They may be a bit of a dark horse or someone that may be able to help somebody in that top 4 to get a better position. But essentially, yeah, the race is in August and we go there to Slovakia and we'll be racing as a team, but I guess we all race. And then hopefully the team internationals, which I may or may not be a part of, gets out on top based on the overall positionings of the participants.
Yeah, it's super cool. I was looking at the website today and it's like the 3 teams will have 1 representative per race and the races go off like every 10 minutes and it's a half distance triathlon. And I think there's like 12 races or something. Is that right? I think there's about 12.
So. There's 12
anyway,
athletes,
super cool. Yeah. So if anybody who's listening to this is curious about it, it's a really fun read on the website. It's like just bringing this whole new angle and bringing competition to a new level. And I think mix and matching people that perhaps would not be, teammates working together. And so we'll put that link in the show notes. But is this something that the PTO put together? Is this a PTO race? I mean, I know they're supporting it, but they created it?
Yeah, the PTO have created it to create almost this atmosphere that people can get behind their country or their region. So it creates a bit of international kind of rivalry, I guess. So yeah, it just adds another element of excitement to it, and it's a totally different format to what we're used to as well. And as you said, we get to race with people that we wouldn't normally consider teammates. So especially being the internationals team, we've got the rest of the world vying for a position on the team. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting and it gives us something a little bit different to what we're used to as well as athletes.
And how is the PTO, or what is your perception of how the PTO has embraced triathlon over the past 18 months? We've seen it from a spectator side. This is phenomenal coverage, phenomenal exposure and support for the athletes. How has it affected you during this time?
Well, essentially, without the PTO, the professionals would have had a really difficult time in 2020 and 2021. So we're very fortunate financially to have the backing of the PTO and to form this group that supports the athletes not only financially, but in many other ways. We've got races. They're supporting grassroots level races that typically wouldn't have the exposure that they've been able to get. The PTO have put, obviously, as you said, a bunch of coverage into the sport to be able to give us exposure and coverage. And yeah, I mean, they're great at promoting the athletes, and the PTO as a whole just wants to bring the athletes to the forefront and really just give them the exposure they deserve, and be able to have the athletes be solely athletes and race professionally and not have to worry about financial burdens or, the inability to travel or inability to race in their region. They just want to cover all bases to have the professionals doing what they love and be able to do it well without worrying about anything. So yeah, it's an incredible concept, and we as professionals are so grateful that this organization has formed.
Is there any added, because of the coverage, like we're seeing like live coverage, we're not just seeing like a camera or live results. Does it add anything to you? I mean, you're at the front a lot anyway, but do you feel like having that camera on you changes anything in your racing or wanting to be in the front? Like, you're on camera?
Yeah. I mean, of course, I guess like when you know people are watching you, you always find that a little bit more. It's a little bit easier to give more when you know that potentially the rest of the world could have eyes on you. So yeah, I mean, you find a little bit more, but for me, I just kind of like to head down, bum up, and just race my own race. So it doesn't really change for me, but it's always nice having a camera on you. It means you're doing well. It means you're kind of in the forefront of the race, I guess. So that's always special.
Yeah, well, you always look gorgeous at races, which, some people might be rolling their eyes right now, but, doing what we do in endurance sports, it's very young, it's very masculine. It's a lot of masculine energy, competition, and, sweat. And so I've always been somebody who's appreciated a fellow female athlete who paints her nails and, I was actually just taking cues from that ring finger that's got gold on it.
I
love that. I love that. I don't think that to be a strong woman that we need to, as I like to say, if I want to dress up my doll, let me dress up my doll. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate women or that I want them to have fair pay or I want, as many women as men going to Kona. It just means that I have fun with this, this body I get to live in, the one that gives back so much. So, we've been watching those races and you look amazing. I love the PTO. However, the PTO is affecting my training in an adverse way because I'm finding that I'm drinking a lot of coffee and eating a lot of pancakes while we're watching this coverage because you can't pull yourself away.
Yeah, and the time difference is a bit off for you guys watching races over here in Australia. So
yeah, my sleep is off. So the PTO needs to have a sub organization for like struggling age groupers because of the PTO. So that's my suggestion.
We'll bring it forward.
And in return, we'll give them our really good pancake recipe. That's what we'll do.
Perfect. That's a good trade-off.
Yeah, we have a really good pancake recipe. So I want to switch gears a little bit. We had Siri on the podcast back in 2016. We had a really beautiful conversation with her. And she told a story, which I know she's told many times, and she even wrote about it in her book. And it was, leading up to the Sydney Olympics, and I think it was the Olympic trials, right? Mm-hmm. And she was like, visualize, how disciplined she is, like visualizing. And in the process of that, got really attached and a lot of pressure. And so the first thing that went wrong in the race, like she just fell apart. And so, we learn from the adversity in our life as much as we don't want to be in it when we're in it. But how has she shaped you or guided you on this mental aspect of training, which, now you've got the world, right, watching you. You've got somebody right on your heels that's, probably wants to be a world champion too. That can be a lot of pressure. There can be a lot of emotional attachment to how you're going to perform. And so how has Siri guided you with, her experience? And she's a legend and she's been in the sport for so long, and just being able to sit with her in person and have this interview, I can feel her kindness, but also she's fierce.
Yeah, definitely. I think having Siri as my coach is incredible because she puts such importance on the emotional and psychological well-being of the athlete rather than just the physical well-being. So I think Siri and I really make an incredible team because for me, I've always struggled with as a younger athlete, probably more the psychological aspect of sport. I have had experiences in the past where I haven't been able to perform under pressure, just as she experienced in the Olympic trials. So I think coming through and having those experiences of my own, I've definitely grown as an athlete. But then having Siri experience the same things as an athlete is really powerful because she's been in my shoes, and the ability to share those experiences with me makes it feel like it's okay. You know, we're all going to have these days, but as long as you learn from them. And Siri is one of those people that's just so motivating and so inspiring that she just makes you want to get the best out of yourself. So before race day, Siri sends me a huge voice note, and it just really gets me in the moment, gets me in the zone, and just makes me want to give more of myself. So that's something that, you know, is really important to me. It's having, you know, knowing that she's there with me even when she's not. And it's important that I have experienced the rough patches that I have. I think for me, the hardest thing was Worlds in 2019 when I got a mechanical, because I put all my eggs in that basket just as she did for the Sydney trials. And when things didn't really go right, it took me a while to get over that. But having gone through similar experiences, we were able to just talk it out and just work together and throw ideas around and move forward from that. And I think, as you said, it really shapes an athlete adversity. So I wouldn't change anything. And I think I've definitely grown from those experiences that I've had. But yeah, it's not always easy to take it in your stride at that time. But with Siri's help, we always overcome things and we always learn from them. Whether I like it or not, we always take something positive away. Well, we try to. Whether it's in that moment or further down the track, there's always something you can take away that's going to help you grow for the next one.
Yeah, if we can look at things as happening, you know, for us, not to us, you know, get the bigger picture that there's something for us to learn from every experience, we can walk away and apply it to our training and then our future races. Do you have any tools that you work with or mindset practices that you use to sort of visualize or, you know, come into calm and peace and harmony before you go into extreme workouts or races?
Yeah, so every morning I do a bit of a priming exercise. Siri's a huge believer in priming. So wake up in the morning and basically just get yourself ready for the day with some mantras and some like questions and positive affirmations, that kind of thing. Just remind myself of my why I want to get through this workout, how I'm going to do that, why it's important that I nail this session, the purpose of the session, and then obviously remind myself of the ultimate goal in the end. And that just gets me in a really good frame of mind and motivates me. And like, you know, there's just no questions as to why I'm getting out of bed that day. So I think that's really important. And then also I like to write in a gratitude journal in the evenings. I just find that it's really nice to be able to put some gratitude out there and be thankful for all the things you do have, especially if you've had a rough day. I mean, there's so many things to be grateful for, and when things aren't going your way, it's often hard to remind yourself of all the good things. So I do that. But yeah, before a race, there's definitely a lot of visualization that goes into it. I mean, I have visualized the World Championships multiple times a day for the last probably 10 years. So, but yeah, every single race, I visualize the course. I visualize how I want to feel. I see myself crossing the line. I see myself in key moments of the race, and I see the reaction that I would like myself to take at each of those pivotal moments in the race. So I think seeing yourself performing the ideal circumstance is important, because then you know in that moment when you come to a decision that you're going to make the right one. So yeah, for me it's important to visualize that and just remind myself that I have a choice in every single moment, and I either choose the easy option or the hard option that's going to get the reward that I want. So that's it.
So it sounds like you were just referencing 2019 when you had the mechanical, and you're talking about the World Championship, which I can imagine, knowing more about your story as I was digging in a little bit more in preparation for this interview, you had been coming off like a really long journey with an injury, and you were like ready, like you were, I'm sure visualizing that podium that day. And so for people who may not know, you had a mechanical on the bike where the shifting stopped working. And I believe, did you finish that bike in like a single gear, which is insane because you finished the race. Like you got into transition and you finished the race. So, and I'm bringing this up because you had mentioned it, but that seems like that was a really heavy thing to let go of, a really heavy thing to move through. And sometimes when it's heavy like that, did you find this, that it's like too far of a jump to go positive on it, that you need to stay in a little bit in that disappointment and that emotion. And I find that there's a lot of grace there. But I'm interested to how you navigated that. Like, did you just allow yourself to kind of be in that and know that it would pass? And then when the gratitude felt reasonable again, you could start bringing that back in?
Yeah, well, I think a disappointment can be really powerful. Of course, at the time, it doesn't feel like it's going to bring any good. But for me, as soon as that incident happened, I was, of course, devastated. I had put all my eggs in that basket and that was going to be my day. But it wasn't meant to be. And I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So whatever reason that was, that it just happened like that. But as soon as I got on the phone after the race, Siri told me, okay, we're going to get on a plane next week. You're going to race in 2 weeks, another half. We're going to use this fitness that we have and we're going to use it for something good. So immediately that switched something in my brain that told me, okay, back to work. We've got something positive to get out of this. I'm so fit. I'm healthy. I don't have any injuries. So why wouldn't I be excited to use this? So I think it can be very powerful. When I was standing on the start line of that second race in Cozumel, I just had this fire, this burning, this energy to just get out there and show people that what I wasn't able to show 2 weeks earlier. So I think, there's some very good things that can come of disappointment. And even now, I haven't had the opportunity to stand on another World Championship start line since 2019, obviously with COVID. But I'm carrying that into the 2021 World Champs, and I hope that I can use that disappointment to fuel an incredible result in St. George this year.
Yeah, you feel that fire burning now?
Oh, yeah.
I saw a recent post of yours about the pre-race nerves, since we're kind of talking about like mindset and stuff, pre-race nerves. And what do you do for those? Like breath, like breathing, or your mantras maybe, or how do you navigate those pre-race nerves? Because you can't just shut those off. Like that's a physiological response that's happening, right? Like excitement and nervousness and all of that. How do you navigate those?
I think nerves are really good. For me, if I'm nervous, it means that I care. So that's something that I always want to carry with me into the race, particularly race morning. But I think, they're definitely, you can't turn them off. You can't get rid of them until that gun goes off. But I think for me, it's important to have a routine race morning so that I just don't get caught up in the nerves. So I know that step by step, my exact routine up until that gun goes off. So at no point am I questioning what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, or I'm letting the negative thoughts that often creep in with nerves, I'm not letting them get the better of me. So because I have a job to do and I know that. I think it's important to also acknowledge nerves and to recognize them as a really great thing. And the adrenaline that comes with them too is really going to help you perform. So they're definitely not a bad thing, and they're not something that you want to ignore. They're just something that you want to take with a grain of salt, and just know that they're there, but know that the thoughts that come with them aren't always true or relevant. So just get on with what you need to do and get to that gun and know that, it will pass once you get out there.
And so I want to pull on this. You've been racing for a long time. How many years?
Yeah.
16 years?
Well, 17 years.
Well, since the Weetabix triathlon.
Did you have, what can you recall being nervous then? Because I can imagine you, now that you have more experience and the tools and a coach and experience, that it's a little more easier to work through. But as a younger triathlete, were the feelings more intense, more debilitating, more fearful than they are exciting now?
I definitely struggled a lot when I was younger with nerves, and I would just completely let them get the better of me as a younger athlete, and often I performed terribly because I just couldn't get past this negative mindset that nerves would put me in before a race, and it became a bit of a roadblock for me. So I decided that I would see a sports psychologist. So when I was about 15, I started seeing a sports psychologist because I was just sick of getting to race day and just crumbling under this pressure when I knew I was capable of so much more. So we built a really great toolbox, and we were able to just get some tools that I needed especially for race day, but also the few days leading up, that would help me manage these nerves. So I definitely think it's a great part of racing when you know how to manage them, but it can be difficult finding ways that work for you to manage them. So for me, it's all about acknowledging the thoughts, but also replacing them with a more positive, constructive thought that's going to help you better yourself rather than go the opposite direction.
Yeah, and you said something that is so profound. Just a few minutes ago, that the feelings that you're having are real, but the thoughts about them, those are rare. They're rarely true. Like if you can take a breath and just zoom out a little bit and see what's happening in the moment, like the feeling, like you can't deny the feeling, right? Like it's everywhere. It's in the tips of your fingers. But the thoughts they can be crazy, and they're not helpful. And so for most people, there's no delineation there. There's no separation there. The thoughts and the feeling are, come together. And so I know this is probably over the years of just kind of watching these and seeing these thoughts. And it's not about making those thoughts go anywhere. It's guiding your focus to something that is helpful, in that moment. So when you were younger, like back when you were 15, what was one of the first tools that you started using that you remember being really helpful?
Well, I think initially I started with writing down all the negative thoughts that came with nerves or pressure or anxiety. And then literally right next door to that, I would write down a similar thought, but one that actually was constructive. So it basically acknowledged that I was feeling this certain way or had this particular thought, but then turned it round to something that was really going to be helpful. So it turned it into something that you couldn't deny. So maybe looking at some data or your training or my training diary, for instance, being able to look at that, it changed it so that I couldn't deny that thought that was the positive, true thought that was. I think that was a really good tool, being able to replace thoughts. Whilst I think it's really important to acknowledge why you're thinking these things too. So whenever a particular thought comes in, you kind of question why you're having that. So for instance, maybe it might be, am I going to experience, get blisters on the run or something like that? And so it gives you an opportunity to cover all bases as well. So you would think, well, maybe it's because I'm wearing new shoes, so perhaps I should try my shoes in the days leading up, or perhaps I should try new socks or something like that, so that you can alleviate these thoughts that are starting to creep in. So usually there is reason for the thoughts, but when it comes to the negativity, you've got to recognize that your brain is automatically going to try and alleviate that unsettling feeling of nervousness because it wants you to be in this nice, homeostasis, equilibrium. It doesn't want you to feel this awful, like, gut-wrenching anxiety that comes with race day. So I think you need to recognize that it's a coping mechanism of your body to bring in these thoughts of, stop, don't race, don't do this, it's not nice. But once you get past that, and you're able to deal with that, I think, they can be really powerful.
Yeah, I love when you, for number one, acknowledge them. Like, don't. Yeah. That's something I had to learn as someone just always being very positive. I had very positive influences very young in my life, and so it was just always positive. But then it's like, if you're a really positive person, you start feeling negative or you start feeling sad or something. It's like, wait, I'm not supposed to feel this way. And so you can deny them, right? And then you stuff them, and then that's no good because that's going to turn into something. But acknowledging them, and I love, I don't know if that ever happened to you, but it happened to me. I love, like, write them down. Just don't judge it. Just dump it, dump it in your journal, dump it down, let it go, acknowledge that they're there. And then, pulling on evidence of all your training, pulling on that to help to support the change or the replacement of the thoughts. But also by just understanding, why am I having these, right? Well, I'm hardwired for safety and comfort. Yeah. And there's nothing about going for the world championship that's safe or comfortable. No. It will be when you're standing there and you're getting your picture taken, but there's nothing safe and comfortable. And so when you just recognize it, it's like there's a degree of emotion that gets pulled out. Like those negative thoughts kind of get disempowered. They don't have such a hold on you anymore when you just recognize that it's just a very natural reaction. It's just a protective mechanism. But for you to be able to do this, like, you're getting into this gap area, right, between the stimulus and the response. And I would think it's just from all the years, you have a lot of skin in the game at this point, and starting with this type of mind training when you were 15 years old. So before we got on hit record, we were talking about our mutual friend Troy, who we love dearly, and he's been on the podcast like 4 or 5 times, I think, at this point. But anyway, he was talking about how you're like a leader for, in the squad, right? Like under Siri, you're a bit of a leader. You have, like I said, you have a lot of years in the game. How do you balance that, like being a leader, but also being a friend to your teammates? And I know things have changed, but I'm assuming that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming you guys are still connected as a community somehow, right, during this time. How do you balance that between being like a leader on the team, but also being a fellow athlete?
Yeah, well, I think it really helps that Troy and the other athletes on the squad have a great relationship. We're all really great friends, aside from being training partners. So I think that really helps. But as a leader, I feel like I have so much experience to share. As you said, I've been in this game for a really long time. I mean, 17 years racing has to have, have some experience that comes with it. So I feel like even though Troy and the other athletes might be older than me, I feel like in race age, I have so much to share with them and so much to offer. So I think they respect that, and they know that, with all my race experience, that I am going to call them out if I need to, or I'm going to, encourage them to do something a different way, or encourage them to try this, or, work harder because, this is what the reward is. And I think they really respect that. And we have such a great friendship and a training relationship that, yeah, I mean, I'm always going to try and get the best out of them, and likewise. So it works both ways. And I think having that two-way street is what makes it incredible. And I'm able to, help them achieve their goals as much as they are mine. So even though I may be a leader as such in the team, I definitely feel like I'm on par as far as, respect and achievement goes.
And in terms of the team, the training, this is the first time in a while you've been sequestered to Australia, and you haven't made your trip to Boulder, which is a place dear to our hearts. We lived there for 10 years. Do you miss not being in that environment of training at elevation and in the Boulder vibe?
Yeah, 100%. I miss it so much. This week is when I'm normally packing up to head over to California, to Oceanside, to race the 70.3, and then I usually go into Boulder for the summer. So this will be my second year not having gone to my second home. So I do miss it. I really miss it a lot. And I really miss having that face-to-face time with Siri and with my teammates. It's really nice to have people around you with who are like-minded and with the same goals that you're trying to achieve. It really helps you get the best out of yourself. So, yeah, I do miss it, and I miss the training environment, the squad environment. I miss Boulder for its beautiful, training facilities, the mountains. So, yeah, but I mean, I'm really safe here in Australia, and I don't want to jeopardize that. And I'm just being grateful for what I do have here. I mean, this is my home, my family, my friends are all here. So it's really nice to be able to stay here for a little bit and feel a bit more settled rather than living out of a suitcase for a while. So yeah, it does have its perks being forced to stay here in Australia.
What is
and we have racing here, so we're very lucky.
You and Amelia.
Yeah, exactly.
And Renee's been
and Renee Kiley.
Yeah. There's a handful of us.
Yeah.
What is it about Boulder? Like, I know what drew us there, but what is it about Boulder, Colorado, that keeps you coming back and making it a big part of your training, making it a big part of who you are as a triathlete?
Yeah, well, aside from the mountains, the trails, the actual, elevation, the place itself, I feel like everybody who lives in Boulder is so like-minded. They're all healthy, fit, eat really well, even the ones that aren't athletes. So I think when you surround yourself with like-minded people and people like that, it makes you, it automatically conform to that lifestyle. So I think it's really easy to get up in the morning and go out and train when everybody else around you is. It's just kind of the norm there. So yeah, I really like that. I like the vibe. I love how friendly everybody is. I love how there's communities of, triathletes, runners, cyclists. But then when it comes to it, they all come together, and I really like that. So I do miss it.
Yeah, we lived there for a long time. It's a lovely place, but it gets cold in the winter. So you've had like the best of both worlds, because you're doing summer and summer essentially. But now you're going into winter.
Exactly.
You better bundle up.
I usually have summer all year, so I'm very lucky. Although when I get there in April, we get like 3 or 4 snows before it does actually warm up. So I don't know.
It's so cold. I know.
Yeah,
but you mentioned trails. And so I'm assuming maybe you do some trail running when you're there, or maybe you do, I'm not sure if you have trails around where you live now, but what do you think the benefit is of training for triathlon, doing cross-training on the trails?
Well, I'm a bit of a liability on the trails, to be honest, but I have been known to roll a few ankles, but I do see a lot of benefit in it in the off season. For me, I can't risk running trails. I mean, like hardcore trails when I'm in my race season, purely because I can't be trusted. But when I am in the off season, it's great. I love using it as a tool because it's just so much softer on your joints, and it does force you to slow down, run a true easy pace, and just enjoy the moment. Essentially, you can go for a long time on the trails, and have very low impact on the body. So I really like it from that perspective, and it's just something different. I think the off season should be all about doing things you love and enjoy, whilst getting fit and whilst building for the season ahead. So it's something I really enjoy. It's different. It takes me to some beautiful places. So I really enjoy doing that in the off season.
What else do you love outside of triathlon?
I love socializing, seeing your family, friends, all that kind of stuff, going to the beach. I am at uni. I can't say I love studying, but it's something that I do have to do outside of triathlon. But yeah, no, I like to just, I don't know, I like baking and cooking, all those kinds of things that, I don't always get the pleasure of doing because I'm always training or rushing around or going between sessions. So I like to just slow down a little bit when I get the opportunity.
What are you studying at uni?
I'm studying nutrition and dietetics.
Ooh.
What have you learned so far?
It kind of goes hand in hand.
Please share. What have you learned? Because we're currently water fasting 1 day a week, giving that a try.
Yeah, we just came off a fast. We ate before we got on the call with you. Yeah, so we could have food in our brain. But I love it because it kind of puts you into this hyper alert state. But
what are you taking away so far? I don't know how deep you're into it, but is there anything that really...
Yeah, well, I'm about halfway through. I've basically taken away... Well, I haven't really taken too many specifics for my profession, I guess, but I am learning kind of micronutrients and the importance in the body of, the role of each nutrient and basically the way it reacts in the body and produces a different outcome, essentially. So I think for me, I really am looking forward to learning about how things react differently in each different person's body, because at the moment we're learning kind of things as a whole, but I know that everybody reacts differently, so that's kind of the thing that I'm most looking forward to. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really changed too much about my own diet yet. I just don't have enough experience to be able to play with those kinds of things. But I have worked myself with a dietitian in the past. So I hope to be able to do that and be able to help not only myself, but others as well with working with that once I get through.
What does your nutrition look like? What's a typical day? Give us a rundown.
So I usually wake up, depending on the session, I might just have a banana and a coffee before I head out for the first session, depending on the length. If it's going to be probably 2+ hours, I'll probably have a full breakfast. So I'll have toast with avocado and sometimes an egg as well. And then, head out for my first session, come back, depending on the time. I might have a snack, so I might have some rice cakes and cream cheese, or I might have yogurt, granola, that kind of thing, or lunch, which usually consists of, a wrap or a sandwich, lots of salad, a little bit of protein, whether that be plant-based or meat. I try and do kind of 4 days plant-based and then 3 days not, but usually I try and mix it up between different types of protein sources as well, and then I'll snack again in the afternoon, so same kind of thing. It might be some fruits, some rice cakes, rice crackers, hummus, that kind of thing, and then in the evening kind of the same thing. I always add like a portion of carbs and then salads, vegetables, and then a protein source as well. So pretty standard, pretty healthy.
What do you crave? Like, what are your cravings? Do you ever have any like, are you a chip girl? Like, what do you crave?
Cookies.
Yeah, cake. I do love chips, salt and vinegar. I think especially when I've had a really hard session, because it's just like that salty, savory kind of taste that I'm really craving. So I do let myself have a few chips if that's what I'm craving. Otherwise, I do crave ice cream sometimes. So that's my kind of guilty pleasure is ice cream. So I'll let myself have it maybe once a fortnight when I'm in my race season, but in the off season, maybe once a week. I'm all about giving in to temptation at the right times of the season. But I don't feel like it's something you should be doing on a daily basis, but definitely every now and again, don't even worry about it. And cheesecake's my other vice. So
So for training, we've actually been having a lot of conversation with our athletes on the team about nutrition. And so when you're racing, do you have a certain amount of calories per hour that you're targeting to take in?
I haven't really done my nutrition like that. So basically I figured out what I felt good consuming during a training session of a specific intensity and a specific duration. And then I basically just replicated that session for the length or the intensity of the half. So, I mean, I have pretty specific nutrition plan. Well, obviously very specific nutrition plan for a half because, you know, I've worked out that that's exactly what works for me. And so that's what I do. But yeah, basically it consists of a gel 30 minutes before race start the race, and then have a gel, another caffeinated gel within the first 10K of the bike. And then on the front bottle of my bike, I have electrolyte, and I have 3 gels, 1 caffeinated, 2 non-caffeinated, and a salt tablet opened up into that bottle, and then just mixed with water. And I have water on the back, and I know that I have to consume both the bottle with my nutrition and the water. And then I have 2 additional gels on the bike as well, both non-caffeinated because I have enough caffeine in the other sources that I don't need additional caffeine. So that's 5 gels on the bike with electrolyte and essentially 2 bottles of liquid. And then once I get out onto the run, I carry 1 caffeinated, 1 non-caffeinated gel. And I also take in electrolyte and water. So yeah, it's pretty standard, but also quite calculated.
Yeah. I mean, it works, right? Like that's what we found. I've tried different things, and it always comes back to like gels, just on the belly, and then we've been using like liquid calories. Like Goo has a Roctane drink, which seems to work really, really well. But it's like you got to find it, and you got to train. You have to train your belly. Like you have to practice it during training. Like you shouldn't be practicing your nutrition on race day.
No, definitely not. And I think for me, like the biggest thing is the consistency of the gels. So Gatorade Endurance have released these gels. They've just released them caffeinated actually, but this consistency is almost like water. They're so liquidy that they're so easy to get down. And for me, I struggled as a younger athlete to find a gel that I could get down without dry heaving. Or without bringing it back. So I think, you know, that's all about trial and error for those kinds of things. But once you do find something that works, stick to it and definitely try it in training. So I try to average probably a gel per 20 minutes in a race.
Getting the calories in. Yeah, it's so important. What we find is it's just the lack of calories. Athletes treating the workouts as, you know, opportunities to shed calories and to really focus on performance and not have to reach for a bottle or stop at a gas station to pick up more calories. So we've been, you know, really uncovering like we need the fuel and it starts, you know, breakfast, whatever meal you had before, so that you finish stronger at the end. Because I think we all know what it feels like to bonk or to get through that run, and then, you know, 6 miles in, you have 7 miles to go, and you're just like faltering, you're just losing it, and your focus is going. So the fueling is just super important.
Yeah, and you'd rather overfuel than underfuel for sure. So I think that's something to keep in mind. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of a race and having nothing more to give. So yeah.
Have you had a perfect or ideal race yet?
I get asked this a lot, actually. I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect race, to be honest. Otherwise, if we found perfection, we'd stop trying for it. So.
I love that.
But I'm getting closer with each one. So, yeah, the harder I work, the more perfect the racing gets. So I definitely haven't had a perfect race, but yeah, I'm getting closer to it.
So at the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about, that you do what you love, right? Like that you do what you love. And a lot of people get to do that. A lot of people have chosen that, have taken risks to do that. And a lot of people, are, right? Like they're in that response of the body and the mind that says, no, it's too much of a risk. Don't go after what you love. What kind of words could you speak to somebody who's really struggling with that? Like maybe they know what they're doing is not what they love, or they have identified what they love, but they're too scared to take that risk. And you being somebody who has done what you love for such a long time and doesn't seem like you're stopping anytime soon. Any words of advice for somebody, or just speaking to the importance of doing what you love?
Yeah, well, I definitely consider myself one of the lucky ones who's found what I love, and I get to do it every single day. So anyone who has found what they love and is questioning whether to take the risk and potentially make it their dream, make it their reality, I think go for it. I mean, regret is far worse than failure. So if you try something and it doesn't work out, at least you tried. I think it's way more important than never trying at all. So I think just go for it and see what happens. And it might change your life for the better. It might not, but at least you know that you did it and you tried, and see what happens. And then for anyone who hasn't found what they love, I mean, keep trying. Don't settle. Don't give up, because once you do find it, it's such a beautiful thing, and you'll never, no matter how old you are or how late in life, it's never too late, because, once you find something you love and you get to do it every single day, it gives you so much purpose to your life that time becomes irrelevant. So I think, keep searching hard, try all these new things, try whatever it is that, sets your soul on fire, because, that's what it's all about in the end, is just finding things that you love and give you purpose and, add substance to your life and get you up every single day.
Yeah. And I think you just gave the recipe to finding your purpose. Is just, what do you love? What do you love,
exactly.
Right? Like love is going to drive you to purpose in your life for sure.
One final question before we wrap this up. I know you were challenged when Siri asked for you to go up to 70.3 distance, and it was not something that you fully embraced maybe at first, but now it seems like you have a love for it. I was out riding with Carrie Lester and Scotty DeFilippis the other day, and he said, you must ask Ellie when she is going to go after the Ironman. So when is the next challenge going to be met?
I probably get asked this about twice a week at the moment. So I kind of expected this one. I used to say never, but I also said never to halves, and look where I am. So I think it's definitely on the cards in the future, but I feel like while I have this love for halves and this unfinished business and this burning desire to become a world champion at this distance, that I'm going to stick at it. I want to be able to achieve everything that I've set out to achieve in this distance before I then set myself another challenge. So I really like to just work on one big goal at a time and, hopefully achieve that and then move on to the next one and, keep myself motivated that way. So for now, it's not on the horizon anytime soon, but maybe in the future. It seems that as triathletes get older, their bodies kind of more adapt to the longer endurance workouts and distances. So maybe as I get a little older, then maybe I'll look at racing an Ironman, but who knows? Yeah.
I think you're at the right distance right now. I think everybody would agree with that. But that question, it's kind of like when you get married and everyone's like, when are you going to have a baby?
Kids?
And you're like, oh my God, I'll let you know. Back off.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is kind of like my baby.
Yeah, it totally is. It totally is. Ellie, thank you so much for your time tonight. It was such a pleasure to talk with you, and we really appreciate everything you shared with our audience. I know they're going to appreciate it as well, and hopefully someday we'll cross paths in the physical at a race. Maybe the World Championship.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
St. George.
Yeah, maybe
in
my
St.
first
George.
Ironman. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.